they began combining animals and humans. They were experimenting at first with it, and they thought, well, this would be interesting to see if we could do this genetically. And they used them as servants and for different laborers and things like that in their society. But they began combining the genes, the cells, to create a half man, half animal. And they told me that the legends we have of half man, half animal, the centaurs, the minotaurs, the mermaids, all of these things, the legends are based on facts, and they originated with what was being done in Atlantis. It didn't come from Greece, where a lot of these legends are supposed to originate from. They just were carried over into our time, into the civilizations of Greece, but they were memories of what was actually being done in the ancient Atlantean times when they were doing the experimentation with the animals and the humans. And they said, you must know this because your scientists are beginning to do the same thing, and it cannot be allowed. Because they said in the days of Atlantis, as they experimented more and more with this, they were on the verge of creating a disease because they didn't realize what they were fooling around with. It was going to create a disease by the combination of these genetics, and that this disease could have destroyed everything or, spread through the people. So this is one of the reasons they said you're violating the laws of nature, so they cannot be allowed to continue. But they said you must know this because your scientists are doing the same thing now and you're headed down the same road, and it is not wise. You probably know that we have been combining human cells. We've been putting them into pigs, and this was so that they could use the organs from the pigs as transplants into humans. The human body will reject a foreign object from an animal, but if they could make the organs with enough human genetics in them, then the human body would not reject it. This was the plan. This is the idea. They could transplant the organs from the pigs into the humans, and the body would accept it. And they were going along with this, but there was one scientist who brought up a very interesting point. He said, I don't think this is wise because we don't know what's going to happen. He said, of course, you can eat pork, it won't hurt you. You can handle pigs, and it won't hurt you. But what happens when you put the organ in the body and the blood is going through that organ and moving these different cells and things throughout the body? He said we could be producing and inventing a disease for which there is no cure. And he said this is a very dangerous thing to do. And for a while, the scientists were listening to him, our scientists. And then they said there might be something to it. But now, according to the news, they are going ahead with it again. And they still don't really have any idea what they're doing. But that's why I was told you must know this, you must write about it, because it's one of the same things that brought Atlantis down. Another thing that was part of Atlantis' destruction was the misuse of the crystal power again. They had used it to the ultimate, and they had huge buildings or temples, whatever you want to call them, that had these gigantic crystals in them. And they were using them for various things in the city. And they wanted more and more power. So they began beaming them down into the center of the earth. For whatever reason, they thought they'd get more power. But what they ended up doing was causing a catastrophe that eventually set off tidal waves and earthquakes and caused the destruction by water. that just huge waves that just took over everything and destroyed everything at that time. And I've had many people go back to those times when they were there and they sunk with Atlantis. They saw the waves coming in and they died at that time. But I've also had other people who have had sessions where they were able to escape. And many of them went in very strange looking craft. I was one that the ones that tried to escape are those that had the positive knowledge and they were trying to save what they could. They had crystals, they had scrolls, they had information that they wanted to preserve. Some of the crafts that they described in this one session were like gigantic bubbles. They were round, and they said they got into them, and it was like half in and out of the water. And these they were able to propel to get out of there before the tidal waves and the earthquakes and everything hit. And other ones, in other regressions, were also able to salvage what they could because they knew what was coming, and they had to get out of there before it happened. And some of these people ended up in what is now Egypt. Some of them ended up in South America. And they brought the knowledge with them. They still had the memories of it. And they were able to build the pyramids and the other monuments because they had the knowledge of how to levitate and how to mold the stones. I've been in Machu Picchu in Cusco where the stones are just molded so closely together you can't even put a credit card between them. And there's no mortar used. I mean, this is fantastic. But that's what I've told. These were built by the survivors of Atlantis. And for a while, this knowledge did remain to where they could pass it down. But then, like anything else, eventually it becomes distorted and begins to fade away whenever different wise men and different people start to use it. The pure knowledge is gone. And so it gradually disappears from the society. Now, I was told that many of us now that are back now were alive during those times. And we've come back now into this life to make sure it doesn't happen again. And they said you can pay back as much karma by being here in this one lifetime as it would normally take you 10 lifetimes to pay back. You can do it in the one lifetime, and that's why we came back. We come back to make sure it doesn't happen again. They told me twice they have tried to raise mankind to this level to where we could do these things with our minds. We can have great advancements. We can really help each other. But both times something happened and it was destroyed and had to begin all over again. They said, we are now at this point where we can do it again, and they're allowing these abilities to come back. They are allowing the psychic abilities to return and become amplified, the healing abilities. This is happening everywhere. I have so many clients that are coming to me who are either healers or they want to be healers. Many doctors are coming who are wanting out of the regular medical profession, away from the drugs, and they want to go into the alternative. They said now is the time to get it back because we need it right now. And they think maybe we'll be able to handle it. Maybe we'll be able to do it this time without destroying the whole world, the known world, the civilization. That's what they were thinking. But along this line, before I sign off, I want to bring up the mystery of the Bermuda Triangle because it directly ties in with what I've been talking about. You know, the Bermuda Triangle is where they have these strange things that happen when planes and ships disappear. And the descriptions they've given before their radio signals and everything give out is just before they disappear. It's just like everything is changed and different. To me, it sounds like they are going into another dimension because that is the description that I've had from other people that I've worked with. Well, what I found when I asked about the Bermuda Triangle, they said it is the remnant of one of the temples or one of the buildings that was used during the time of Atlantis is buried way down underneath the water. And they said these buildings, this one in particular, was used for time travel and for going between dimensions. So it had machines there that these gigantic crystals powered so they could use it to go in and out of dimensions and in and out of time. So it was buried underneath the waves and the dirt. But they said it is still partially functioning. It was never totally shut down by the disaster. It was still partially functioning. So they said, if you could visualize, it's not really what it is, but if you could visualize a mirror hanging by a string, and as the water would move it one way or the other, if it would happen to flash upward toward the surface, then if there was any boat or airplane in that vicinity, it would be zapped into another dimension because that was the purpose of the machine. So it's still there, but it's not functioning correctly because of the damage. It doesn't do it all the time, it's just very sporadic. And that was the definition that I was given for the Bermuda Triangle, and I think it all ties together, and it makes a great deal of sense.